Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi à tous. Je souhaite que tout le monde profite de cette longue fin de semaine, mais je souhaite également que tout le monde le fasse en toute sécurité. Nous avons très bien réussi à ralentir la propagation du virus responsable de la COVID-19. En effet, 9 jours se sont écoulés depuis l'annonce d'un nouveau cas au Nouveau-Brunswick et il ne reste un seul cas actif dans la province. Nous avons terminé la première semaine de la mise en œuvre de la phase orange de notre plan de rétablissement et bon nombre d'entreprises et de lieux de travail ont commencé à reprendre leurs activités. Le virus n'est pas pourtant autant disparu. Il est toujours parmi nous. The Victoria Day holiday weekend has arrived, and for New Brunswickers, this traditionally marks the start of summer, the time when we work in our gardens, open up the camp, and enjoy barbecue with family and friends. This Victoria weekend will be different because of COVID-19, and we will all have to adjust our activities to meet the new reality. And I want everyone to enjoy this holiday weekend, but I want you to be safe. We have all done very well in slowing the spread of COVID-19. It's been 9 days since we've reported a new case in New Brunswick, and there is now just one active case in the province. We have completed the first week of the orange phase of our recovery plan, and many businesses and workplaces have begun to open. But the virus has not gone away, and it is still out there just beyond our borders and perhaps even inside our borders as we have travel coming in and out of the province every single day. We must be ready when a new case arises. I am sure they will. This is why it's very important that we all stay within our 2-household bubble and that we protect our bubble against this disease. Keeping the number of close contacts very small is very important. So the COVID-19 virus cannot move around on its own. It spreads through close contact between people and when we touch surfaces that other people have touched. The more the contact happens, the faster and more broadly the virus will spread. And when you stay at home within your 2-household bubble, you're denying the virus the opportunity to spread to others. Every close contact you have outside your bubble increases the risk for your health and the health of those within your bubble. Quand vous restez à la maison ou respectez le concept de la bulle de 2 ménages, vous empêchez le virus de se propager aux autres. Chaque fois que vous avez des contacts étroits avec une personne à l'extérieur de votre bulle, vous augmentez le risque pour votre santé et celle des autres membres de votre bulle. Close contact should only be with those who are inside your 2-household bubble. This keeps everyone in the bubble safe from COVID-19 and protects those not in your bubble from getting the virus. It works both ways. So when you're outside your bubble, keep your interactions brief and maintain 2 meters of physical distancing between yourself and others. The virus cannot jump or spread at a distance of 2 meters or more, but it is important to continue to wash your hands because if you've touched a surface where there's COVID-19 virus and then you touch your face, that's how you get infected. So frequently washing your hands is very, very important. And when physical distancing is not possible, you should wear a community mask that covers your mouth and your nose. The temptation is to behave as if we have like a year ago, before any of us had heard of COVID-19. And this weekend, we really have to resist that temptation. We must act as if the virus is all around us because it is still all around us. Nous devons tous nous comporter comme si le virus était tout autour de nous, parce qu'il est vraiment encore tout autour de nous. In particular, it is important to avoid close contact with people who have recently been outside New Brunswick. And if somebody is coming from outside the province and is self-isolating, you have to do it safely. So staying in a different bedroom, not sharing a bathroom, staying 6 feet away from people, not sharing utensils or items like towels, etc. If a neighbor or a family member has just returned to the province and is in self-isolation, you can help them by offering to pick up groceries and other supplies so that they can stay isolated in their home. Support them in helping to keep New Brunswick safe. Next week, licensed daycares and early childhood learning centers will open, operating under public health guidance. And I know that many parents are nervous about this because they need their children to be safe. And I'm a mom, so I understand that. Childcare is critical to the functioning of our society and our economy. We cannot move to our new normal without it. But we must ensure that daycares are operated safely and do not become a means of transmitting infection to children or staff. You can protect the children in daycare and the staff in daycare by staying in your two-household bubble and making sure that everyone inside your two-household bubble understands those risks and behaves accordingly. The opportunity for the virus to spread is greatly reduced if the families of each child in a daycare have contact with only one of their household. Similarly for the staff have to remain in their household bubbles as well. If you are unwell, do not go to a daycare. This applies to children as well as to parents and daycare staff. By staying in your bubble, you are keeping our daycares safe. You are keeping our hospitals, nursing homes, and special care homes safe. You are keeping our workplaces, stores, and businesses safe, and you are keeping New Brunswick safe. Don't break your bubble this weekend. Have fun, but stay safe. Chaque citoyen du Nouveau-Brunswick doit s'engager dans la voie du succès de notre province. Ainsi, il faut respecter le principe de la bulle de 2 ménages, s'auto-isoler en arrivant au Nouveau-Brunswick et respecter les mesures relatives aux frontières. Every New Brunswicker needs to commit to our path to success. This includes not breaking your bubble, self-isolating after entering the province, and comply with border measures. Don't be afraid, be careful. Let's all step up for New Brunswick. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Bonjour. I realize that most of you are well aware that I don't normally wear red, but today I'm very proud to be wearing this T-shirt, Thank a Trucker T-shirt, as part of a campaign from the Atlantic Provinces Trucking Association. Truckers always play an important role in providing us with the essentials we need. My brother drove a long-haul rig for over 30 years. During this pandemic, we have seen how critical that truckers have been in providing essential supplies to us throughout the duration and continuing to do so. Thank you very much. Je veux le remercier de faire le pas pour nous aider à traverser cette crise. Il continue de faire un travail important jour après jour, mais si cela signifie qu'ils doivent se mettre à risque. We're about to head into the Victoria Day long weekend. For many of us, this marks a kickoff to the summer season. This year, things might not look the same as usual. We won't be able to visit our friends and family from outside of New Brunswick. Our borders are still restricted, and we can't plan trips to other provinces right now. But fortunately, we have a lot to be thankful for right here at home. We have not had any new cases of COVID-19 in more than a week, and we only have one active travel-related case in the province at this time. Au cours de la dernière semaine, il y a eu plus de magasins et de restaurants qui ont ouvert, et la vie commence à être un peu plus normale. As we head into the long weekend, please remember, if someone is not part of your two-household bubble, you must maintain a 2-meter distance from them, and gatherings must be limited to 10 people or fewer. These guidelines are in place to protect you, your family, and your friends. We have to continue to do our part to keep all New Brunswickers healthy and safe. We have a good reason to be proud of the progress we've made as a province to minimize our risks and contain the spread of this virus thus far. But we must also remember all of the hard work and sacrifice that it took to get us to this point. Nous sommes toujours vulnérables face à la COVID-19. Nous avons minimisé les risques, mais nous ne pouvons pas les éliminer complètement. Nous devrons continuer à respecter les directives de la santé publique. Another good news story for New Brunswick is that after 10 weeks in operation, the River Watch program for the 2020 freshet season ends today. I would like to thank everyone involved in this operation for their efforts. In years when there is little flooding, their work can sometimes go unnoticed. But even during a pandemic, everyone involved was prepared to help New Brunswickers if needed. We are all grateful for their commitment to keeping New Brunswickers safe. Alors que de plus en plus d'entreprises continueront de relancer leur activité au cours des jours à venir, il y a des propriétaires d'entreprises qui cherchent des façons de fonctionner en toute sécurité. Certains d'entre eux devront venir de l'équipement de protection individuelle à leurs employés pour continuer à opérer leur entreprise, tout en suivant les lignes directrices de la santé publique. We've developed a list of New Brunswick companies that are able to sell personal protective equipment to interested businesses or industry associations. This list can be found on the GNB coronavirus website by following the link for businesses. If business owners have additional questions about the measures they must take to operate safely, they can contact our Business Navigator line by calling 1-833-799-7966 or by emailing nav@navnb.ca. We are continuing to call on our residents to step up for our New Brunswick. We have many job opportunities in the seafood processing sector in particular. We are looking for fish plant laborers, seafood plant workers, lobster processors, and more, in addition to the agricultural sector. So far, more than 700 job seekers have registered on the Job Match NB website. We held a virtual fair earlier this week with more than 1,700 attendees. However, there's still a great need in our seafood processing and agricultural sectors. And we encourage you to reach out to us to let us be sure to understand your availability and interest in becoming involved and engaged in stepping up for your New Brunswick. Nous allons continuer à travailler avec les employeurs pour trouver des façons de répondre à leurs besoins. Les gens de New Brunswick qui cherchent un emploi peuvent visiter le site web Jumelage Emploi NB pour voir les postes disponibles. Job seekers can also reach out directly to the employers for more information. These jobs pay on average $14.62 and in some cases can pay up to $23 an hour. In certain cases, they include additional benefits as well. Some may also provide transportation or offer additional performance pay to employees. Nous avons déjà vu qu'il y a des Néo-Brunswickois qui commencent à faire le pas, et je sais qu'ils continueront de le faire. I want to thank those who have heard the call, like the 13 young people in Blackville who will be working for Baie-Sainte-Anne Seafoods. These are the stories I love to hear, and I look forward to hearing more in the days ahead as New Brunswickers continue to step up for their province. Please keep in mind that many retailers will be closed on Monday to mark Victoria Day. This will provide a much-needed rest for workers, many of whom have been serving the public and providing New Brunswickers with necessities throughout this pandemic, even when the rest of us were being asked to stay at home. C'est un bel exemple de résidents qui font le pas pour notre Nouveau-Brunswick. Nous remercions nos travailleurs essentiels pour leur dévouement et pour le travail qu'ils continueront de faire chaque jour. I hope everyone has a chance to enjoy the long weekend. Please continue to take care of each other. Stay safe. Thank you. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Dr. Russell. Thank you, Premier Higgs and Dr. Russell. We will now proceed with questions from the media. Each reporter will have one question. You have the right to pose your question in the language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes. Chaque journaliste aura une question et vous avez le droit de poser vos questions dans la langue de votre choix. Derek Cole, Sackville Tribune.
Hello, Mr. Premier. The reason I'm calling is there are a number of people in the Amherst area who own cottages in New Brunswick, in the Bayport, Port Elgin areas, and they're fairly frustrated that they cannot go to their cottages. I guess, when will these people be allowed to go to their cottages, which are in New Brunswick?
I know that is creating some angst in the neighboring provinces, and we've been discussing this collectively with public health and with the other premiers. At this time, we're in phase two, week one, and going into week two of phase two. If the conditions continue the way we hope, discussions next week about moving to the next phase, and when public health agree it's time to do so, then we'll see what new opportunities exist. But right now, our borders are closed as they have been for some time. We know that is the secret to much of the success that we've enjoyed to date. is understanding who is traveling, where, when, and why. We understand that there's a concern about coming onto properties that you own here. Right now, we're allowing people to move all around our province, within our province. And I guess I would ask for just a little more patience in this regard. And let's see where the coming weeks bring us. But right today, the border controls remain the same.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Elizabeth Fraser, CBC.
Hi there, my question is for the Premier. CBC News has been receiving reports that New Brunswick teachers are expected to go back to work starting June 1st. Can you confirm this, and if so, why?
Well, I can't, I guess it's a question maybe, I don't know if you mentioned that yesterday to the Minister of Education. I think that there's a lot of preparatory work being done to ensure that we are ready no matter what for the fall. And I don't, at this point in time, see any plans in the works to move into, to open schools prior to September. But there is a lot of work being done behind the scenes to ensure that we indeed can open in September in some fashion. Now, that may be electronically. It depends, I guess, where we are at the time with the pandemic. So there may be sessions being planned in June in that regard to help prepare for the fall. And that would be all that I'm aware of at this stage.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Thank you, Premier. Michel Corriveau, Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. C'est une question pour le Premier ministre, M. Higgs. Monsieur le Premier ministre, il y a un propriétaire d'usine de transformation de homards de grande digue qui dit que le système pour trouver des emplois que vous avez mis en place dans les usines ne fonctionne pas. Son usine va fonctionner à seulement 50%, alors que ses concurrents à l'île du Prince-Édouard et en Nouvelle-Écosse fonctionneront pour leur part à 100%.
So I understand there's, there's challenges certainly in that regard. As we've seen both challenges in this year's fishery, and the fact that with the current market, whether there'll be a fishery that will be financially viable. We've seen also that the federal government just recently announced more aid for fishers, so that might be a consideration that they're thinking it won't be. I know there are a number of people that have been looking at the opportunities to work at these plants. I know some companies have been very engaged in looking for people to work at these plants. And they themselves have found students and found people to come and have an experience there. So I would be certainly willing to discuss with this particular operator, or any actually, because we have committed to ensure that they have the workers they need. You know, I think it's a sad commentary on our province if we have 70,000 people unemployed, and that basically we're not able to find enough people to work in the opportunities that exist. It tells us something about our challenges we have as a province, maybe as a nation. I know many people are on the 4-month program right now that the federal government supplied and feel little obligation or reason to move into a job at this stage. That's why we started the campaign, to try to help, to encourage people to help us. But I want to say first and foremost, I want to work with these companies to ensure they have the needs are filled to get the workers they need. And I expect them to be forthright in what they actually need given the market, because together we will find a solution. And as our conditions change here, you know, that could include other options, because if our health, the pandemic issues stay the same, then that maybe allows us to make different decisions going forward.
Merci, Monsieur Corriveau. Vicki Hogarth, Charlotte County TV.
Thank you, Bruce. My question is for the Premier. Premier Higgs, I spoke with the PSW this morning who makes $14.80 an hour and is well under the $2,500 a month salary, which is supposed to make her eligible for a federal top-up that she still hasn't received. When you spoke with the Prime Minister last night, was there any update on the federal top-up for personal support workers and when it's coming? And also, what else did you speak about?
Well, in the case of the Essential Service Program from the federal government, a letter was sent yesterday, day before, to the federal government identifying, you know, what the next steps would be there and applying for the program. So this particular group that you're talking about are workers, if they fall into the eligibility of the federal criteria, then they will be contacted. It'll likely be It'll likely be next week, even could be the week after, but if they're eligible under the federal program as was identified, they will be contacted.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Ms. Hogarth. David Coach, Times and Transcript. David Coach, Times and Transcript.
Hi, sorry, just having trouble unmuting my phone there. The question is for Premier Higgs. There's an aspect of the temporary foreign worker ban that I don't think has been previously addressed. The group No One Is Illegal Fredericton has said in an open letter signed by some 175 individuals and groups that the ban scapegoats people who have provided labor essential to the economy and treats them as disposable after years of work. It says that this kind of policy only serves to increase incidences of racism and xenophobia. One member of the group who I spoke to said he doesn't believe that you intend to generate xenophobia, but that this ban will actually stoke fears about immigrants. And I'm just wondering how you respond to that, that this could actually encourage racism and xenophobia, and that these workers be treated as disposable.
So firstly, I would like to differentiate between temporary foreign workers and our immigration policy. If you recall our previous budget, we actually were asking to bring more immigrants into our province. I think moving from 7,500 to 10,000 a year, and we made those requests to the federal government. So that would be clear, I think, to tell you where my position is, to have more immigration, not less. In the case of the temporary foreign workers, a different scenario here. You know, I initiated this because of these individuals at the time were coming from Mexico and Jamaica, and Mexico was in a position of a significant outbreak, and we were still moving in you know, not quite sure where we were going to trend. So it's all about what additional risks we could mitigate in the process. So it is nothing to do with individuals or where they're coming from, other than if there's health risks associated with that. But I think the bigger question here lies on going forward. We've had a lot of discussion about food security. I would love for these temporary foreign workers to come here and live here full time in our province, because I don't exactly consider someone a temporary worker if they've been coming for the last 20 years. So you'd like to be able to say, can we create an economic environment here that would not only encourage our own people to get engaged in it, but also encourage people that are coming here to be here full time. So I would say to the individual, my goals are the exact opposite. I want to see more people coming to our province that want to step up, and I'm not concerned about what country they originate from. When we're not in a health pandemic, I just want people to be part of the solution for Nouveau-Brunswick's future.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Coach. Silas Brown, Global TV.
Hi, Premier. Over the last little bit, we've seen different projections on where the province's fiscal situation could stand, particularly focusing on the deficit, where that might come in. I know you've already said that we are in significant deficit territory at this point, but when will you or the finance minister be giving a fiscal update to let the public know exactly where the fiscal situation in the province stands?
So the finance minister would be doing that on or before when the ledge opens. So at this point, it could be that day or right in the vicinity of the legislature opening, or in a press conference prior. But there will be at that time a statement and information given on exactly where we see the province at this stage. And because we are monitoring this on a regular weekly basis, you know, actual cost versus our budget, and now it's not tracking the budget, I assure you that. But it is a case where I'm very cognizant of what what our budget's going to look like in future years. If things change, I've said it now numerous times about if things change on our transfer payments, I am trying to start up the economy in a way that the economy can continue, and that businesses and people working here aren't going to be hit with more taxes in order to keep running at a whole different level than we were before we got into the COVID. So it is a balancing act, and working with every company, every individual to try to start our economy up in a way that we get back to where we were, but better than where we were.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Laura Brown, CTV.
Hi, Premier. I'm wondering if you've had any talks with the Prime Minister regarding the agreement that's been in place between the United States and Canada around the border closure, and whether or not you're hoping or have asked for that to be extended past May 21st.
And yes, we have, and yes, I did. At this point, it looks like it would be another 30-day extension. I anticipate the federal government would announce that over the coming, maybe early next week or so. But we did have those discussions, and although I can't, preclude what the Prime Minister is going to say, I think the general tone of the discussion, that there's general consensus across the country. We need to maintain our commercial activities. There's no doubt about that. But the border security is considered something that is certainly worth protecting at this point in time, and likely renewed for another 30 days.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Adam Harris, Telegraph Journal.
Thanks, Bruce. Premier Higgs, I wanted to know if Nova Scotia is now in the conversation to be a bubble province with New Brunswick and PEI. They now only have 65 active cases of COVID-19, and a large number of them are in a single nursing home. And then it also adds a perspective, 1 million people to the tourism season.
So I had a council of premiers of the land of Canada here just a few days ago, and we discussed these issues between our respective provinces. And the basic consensus coming out of that certainly was Premier McNeil said that he wasn't in a position now and would not be considering that at this point in time, and could maybe later in the summer. And the discussion with Dennis King was, what he was thinking about was like early July, mid-July type frame. And of course, Premier Ball, it was similarly later. So all of the discussions that we had were around following the tracks that we're on, understanding we're opening up in the same vein, and continuing to work with our public health authorities in that regard. But at this time, it would certainly seem that it's PEI and ourselves would be the closest in that sense.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Kevin Bissett, Canadian Press.
Premier, has been mentioned a number of times during today's conference that fish processors have been short on staff, and that New Brunswickers have not stepped up to the degree that you wanted to fill the job vacancies there. So looking back, was the ban on temporary foreign workers a mistake? And what more can you do to try to help fill those jobs?
So I guess our active case count is 1. And I guess so. Was it a factor? Was it not a factor? Every decision we've made to this point has been related to the public health considerations coming first and foremost. Has the uptake been what I had hoped at this point? No, it has not. Is it concerning when we have 70,000 people unemployed in the province? Yes, it is. Do I feel that the federal program of paying people 4 months to stay home and not need to even look for a job? Yeah, I think that has been a factor, and it's been one we've discussed across the country. We have a cultural shock here in our province that's I think needed in order to put us back on the map in the areas of food security, in the areas of driving our economy and all being part of it. So in addition to my discussion here earlier that we will work with the companies to find the workers we need, and as the current health rules and our situation in the province where it is, it's a different time now than it was when I made the decision a month or so ago. We've seen a huge spike in the requests of late, which is a little bit concerning how that all of a sudden happened. But nevertheless, we'll work with each supplier and processor to ensure we can meet their needs. And, I believe in New Brunswickers. I still will continue to believe in New Brunswickers. If our campaign has not been as effective as it could have been, shame on us. Because I think if we really got to talk with people, tell them what opportunities they are, and what opportunities that they could, what they can do as part of being helpful. I've never met anyone yet that doesn't want to do the right thing and doesn't want to be part of a solution and doesn't want to be recognized for the part they play. I said here a few weeks ago or a week or so ago that this is a point in time in history that we'll all look back on, and we'll all say, what did we do for our part? And you know, if we applied for 600 people out of 70,000 to come to work and we ended up with 100, boy, you'd think there's a few more there that would be interested.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Bissett. Matthew Wakomo, l'Acadie Nouvelle.
Monsieur Higgs, vous semblez avoir émis un petit peu plus tôt durant la conférence de presse une certaine ouverture à la possibilité que les propriétaires de chalets au Nouveau-Brunswick qui habitent à l'extérieur puissent venir en profiter avant la fin de l'été. Est-ce que cette ouverture-là s'appliquerait aussi aux touristes en général et peut-être aussi aux Québécois qui essaient de se rendre aux îles de la Madeleine?
So, I guess starting at the last part first, certainly in relation to the Quebecers wanting to get to the Ile de Madeleine, I've had that discussion with Premier King, and I know he's speaking with folks in Quebec and the Premier Legault staff to discuss what that might look like. But that was in terms of allowing transit, you know, through New Brunswick, through PEI. I think that any movement in relation to outside activities or people coming into property they own, we'd want to be in a position where we had the same kind of rules, and Premier King and I were sharing that information about if we get to a point sometime in the summer, and again, working with public health, that we feel we can manage these risks of someone coming to their property, we understand the need to do that. And we want them to still have I guess, a certain amount of pride in having a place in New Brunswick and an anxiousness to be here, and we recognize that. But I am just asking to be patient right now. We're getting aligned with other provinces. We'll work with public health, and as we get into phase 3, then I guess it's understanding what's possible. But would we be opening up for tourism? I think that's a different story. I think that we're saying vacationing in New Brunswick. You know, if that amounts to vacationing in PEI, but I don't think that vacationing outside of the two provinces I'm speaking of here would be in the cards right now.
Merci, Monsieur Wakomo. Merci, Monsieur Premier Ministre. Gail Harding, CBC.
This question is for the Premier. When the province previously announced the COVID-19 recovery plan, you said bars would not be one of the businesses that could reopen in the orange phase, but now tap room and pub owners are saying that you've given them the go-ahead. Why the change of heart, and what kind of drinking establishments are still not allowed to reopen?
So my understanding is that was the difference between a restaurant and a bar really is around, like they both get the same kind of license with respect to alcohol. And in terms of how they are spaced out in terms of physical distancing, et cetera, that is the criteria really that you have to meet. And WorkSafe has got information on that. And bars and restaurants can open provided they have the operational plan in place and they can, again, abide by the physical distancing requirements.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Ms. Harding. John Chilbeck, Brunswick News.
Hi there. This is a message this is a question for the Premier or the Chief Medical Health Officer or both, whoever could answer best. I've been going back and forth with Ottawa on testing. The average amount of testing right now is only about 190,000 tests a week across Canada, when they hope to have had 500,000 a week. They say that Lumen Ultra, based in Fredericton, is fulfilling its obligation of supplying reagents for 500,000 tests a week. So this points to a bottle jam in provincial labs. So I was wondering what the situation is in New Brunswick. Are the labs in New Brunswick not able to keep up with the amount of testing that we should have?
So with respect to New Brunswick, John, our level of testing is based on how many cases we have had throughout the pandemic, and we knew that in order to give public health advice on removing public health measures as we go through the phases, we would have to maintain a minimum number of tests of between 2,300 and 2,500. So that's our goal for the minimum number of tests, because that was what was required as we went through the pandemic. But as we move into the next phase, we are still looking for symptomatic cases, and so we're still focusing on symptomatic testing. We don't have a shortage of supplies to be able to do that. We also are moving into doing more asymptomatic testing, very targeted asymptomatic testing. So we don't have a logjam at this point because our testing strategy is based on national testing strategy as well, information that we get from Public Health Agency of Canada. And so as we focus on the symptomatic testing, doing a little bit of targeted asymptomatic testing, and then reserving some capacity for surge in case there is an outbreak in an institutional setting, and we can go in and do a very large number of tests in a short period of time. So right now, we're focused on making sure that we do the minimum number of tests along with some asymptomatic testing, some sentinel testing, and then doing some surge capacity testing in the event of an outbreak in a specific setting. And so right now we are in a good state in terms of being able to have access again to the supplies and the resources and the capacity that we need. If there was a bigger outbreak, we could go up to as many tests as 2,500 a day actually. So again, right now we're not experiencing a logjam.
Thank you, Mr. Chilbeck. Thank you, Dr. Jacques Poitras, CBC.
Hi, for the Premier, I wanted to follow up on the discussion of this transit corridor idea through to the Magdalen Islands that you talked about on Quebec radio yesterday. Would that conceivably include overnight hotel stays within New Brunswick? And should New Brunswick businesses be allowed to refuse to serve people traveling through from another province?
Well, at this point, it's not even I guess it's a consideration just because it's a discussion point, but there hasn't been any details worked out as to what that might entail. The preliminary discussions that we had, myself and the Premier of PEI, it was basically, it would entail a straight run through to the Magdalen Islands, and so there wouldn't be any stopping in, and so it'd be treated similarly to what we've seen with other cases coming into the province, and allowing the traffic to go straight through our province to Nova Scotia, to PEI, to Newfoundland. So we've been doing that ever since we started. So I don't see any real change there in that regard. But at this stage, it becomes also the question, if let's say Quebecers have a cottage on the Magdalen Islands, and they got to travel through to get through our provinces to get there, should we also have a policy here when we're able to provide access for whether it be Quebecers or anyone else to come to their camp or cottage in New Brunswick? So the context of it is where Dennis Gang was going to be talking, the Premier is going to be talking with the Quebec officials, and then he and I were going to get back together, and then we'll talk with the respective public health officials to see what might make sense.
Thank you, Mr. Poitras. Thank you, Premier. Andrew Watt, Telegraph Journal.
Yeah, hi, my questions for the Premier. Premier, you spoke about the virtual job fair and the job vacancies. Can you tell us how many jobs are vacant and outline your plan of what you intend to do if New Brunswickers don't step up and fill these jobs?
Well, I think that, right now we have the sequence. We have the companies listed. We have a sequence of the total job requirements. And I forget, I'm not sure the exact number, but let's say over the next 3, 4, 5 months, it's 1,200 people. I'm kind of guessing. I don't recall the exact number. But let's say that, and I'm talking like over the summer growing period in the agriculture and the processing period going through to the year end. So if what we're saying right now is, okay, what are the timelines we need? So to look at today for planting season, then things are not quite the same until the big push on in harvesting, and obviously there's some activities in between, but the intense times. In the processing, it becomes right now, and well, just as the season starts, but some seasons have already started. So what I've said basically is we're seeing groups come together. We've seen a couple areas that have hired 15 people or so in both cases. I think that our targeting can be a little more precise in who we're going after and what the benefits are to these positions, not only in learning what's important to New Brunswick in our food sector, but also in understanding that these jobs are crucial to New Brunswick, and they're certainly well-paying jobs. I don't think we've communicated well at this point what the pay rates are, the benefits are. I think that in general, I guess I would say as a province, we've undersold the value of the food processing, the fishery, the agriculture sector in our province. We have undersold it for generations. Through this whole thing and being part of the pandemic, I guess has given us an opportunity to focus on what's important across our nation, across our province. We've talked a lot over years, I'm gonna go back to food security, but we haven't done anything about it. So I'm hoping as much as anything, if we have to change some decisions in order to ensure that our companies and our farmers have the help they need, we'll do that. But it's, personally, it's a disappointment if out of 70,000 people, we're not able to meet the demands that are a fraction of that.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Waugh. Catherine Lecomte-Roussel, Frontière Edmundston.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est pour le Premier ministre. Monsieur Higgs, vous avez annoncé vouloir renforcer le contrôle aux frontières. De son côté, le Québec enlèvera ses contrôles routiers le 18 mai. Les gens pourront donc quitter le Nouveau-Brunswick et se rendre n'importe où au Québec sans restriction. La population de la région d'Edmundston craint particulièrement cette situation parce que le Québec a beaucoup de cas de COVID-19. Donc, ma question est la suivante. Le Nouveau-Brunswick peut contrôler qui entre dans la province, mais est-ce qu'éventuellement le Nouveau-Brunswick pourrait contrôler qui en sort?
You know, it is a good question. At this stage, that hasn't been a big, I guess, we haven't seen a big concern there, but I understand that it could be more so as the summer months approach. The concern has been most people were not traveling for unnecessary reasons into a place, you know, into the situation that Quebec find themselves in right now. And, you know, and I say that in the sense that I recognize what Premier Legault is going through and the density of population, particularly in the Montreal area that has been, we don't have to deal with that here in New Brunswick in that sense. So I've heard both Premier Legault and Premier Ford talk about the challenges they're facing in these very high density populated areas. So maybe we'll see that going forward, but as we're stopping people coming back into our province, we will understand, okay, if they left and went to, let's say, Quebec, then they need to come back and they need to isolate and stay 14 days in isolation. We have a policy that's been in place for months now, and they would have a address to come home, so we would allow them to come back in the province. But I would just say if you're vacationing this year, why not stay in New Brunswick? I mean, we certainly at this point, you know, it's safe. There's an opportunity for you to see our province once again and explore so many things that probably you haven't seen that our province has to offer. I'm really hoping for a step change here as people discover New Brunswick one more time.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Merci, Madame Lecomte-Roussel. Margot Cassidy-Akobari, Radio-Canada.
Ma question sera aussi pour le Premier ministre. On va encore revenir sur la question des frontières. Oui ou non, la frontière avec le Québec va demeurer fermée aux touristes cet été. Je repose la question car votre ministre Dominique Hardy a été beaucoup plus catégorique que vous sur nos ondes il y a 2 jours en disant qu'il n'était pas question de rouvrir les frontières d'ici la fin de l'été.
I don't see any reopening either of the border before the end of the summer. And I think what we've talked about here are people that have properties in the province. And is that a policy that we consider? We're considering those policies, but we've also said that borders are a key, I guess, key to our success and continued success in fighting the health pandemic. So I agree. If there's not any clarity there, I don't see the borders opening this summer.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Merci, Madame Cassidy-Akobari. Clara Pesica, Times and Transcript.
Hi,
Hi, this question is for the Premier, though perhaps Dr. Russell would like to elaborate. With the long weekend approaching, a surprising number of New Brunswickers are confused why thrift stores are open, but they're being told that they can't have a garage sale, which would be an outdoor event with usually less than 10 passerbys at a time. Can you explain the decision-making process and when something like a garage sale might be allowed?
For the thrift stores, they have been allowed to open with the caveat around the work-safe guidelines around social distance, physical distancing, et cetera, and having a plan to open. So, and again, for the next phase, in the yellow phase, the garage sales would fall into that phase. And so the decision-making really right now is around the store owners being responsible for implementing all of the work-safe guidance around how to operate safely. And then for the next phase, we can look at garage sales.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Clara. Savannah Odd, Telegraph Journal.
Hi, Premier. So over the past several months, I guess, since COVID measures took effect here in New Brunswick, we've seen several very small protests in that time. What is the province actively doing to keep misinformation under control as we move ahead with our recovery phases? And to your knowledge, have there been any consequences either for people spreading misinformation or protesting in a group, not respecting physical distancing?
Hi, Savannah. I'm going to answer the question around misinformation. So we actually have a communications team at the Executive Council office that really does a thorough scan of information that's out there on social media, et cetera, and addresses those on an individual basis. And certainly if we see a headline that's not completely accurate in a story, which can occur occasionally and has recently, it is very important at the end of the day for New Brunswickers to have accurate information. That accurate and transparent information is important for public health reasons in terms of, again, being in a crisis, being in a pandemic, having that ability to connect with the public in a way that they understand and that they can internalize the information and then make decisions and have behavioral changes that align with all the things they need to do to protect themselves and protect their loved ones and community members. So we are all responsible for making sure that only accurate information is put out there. So I think every individual has a responsibility to take that on and make sure that we are only providing credible sources of information. For instance, the GNB website, for instance, the Public Health Agency of Canada website. If people have inquiries about things that they haven't been able to find the answer to, we actually have an email address and I believe a phone number that people can call to get answers to their questions. It's the help aid at gnb.ca. So we want people to have access to accurate information. So again, we try to provide that to people with our own website, with the email address. And again, we are committed to that, and it's really a matter of protecting all New Brunswickers, and our website is constantly updated, as is the Public Health Agency website. It has accurate information and up-to-date information as well. So I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that information is accurate and up-to-date.
Thank you, Ms. Odd. That concludes today's update. Thank you. Voilà la fin de notre mise à jour. Merci beaucoup.